All right, so today we are going deep on Michael Jordan.
Okay.
And, you might be thinking, what more is there to say about MJ?
Right.
We've all seen the highlights.
Yeah.
We all know about the championships.
Yeah.
But today, we're going beyond all of that to explore something a little different.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at Jordan's personality through the lens of the Enneagram.
Oh, wow. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so we're really going to do a deep psychological analysis
Right.
of Michael Jordan
Right.
as a, textbook example of the Enneagram Type 3,
Okay.
which is also known as the Achiever.
The Achiever. Okay.
And more specifically, we're going to be looking at the Social 3 subtype.
The Social 3 subtype.
Yeah, so just a quick refresher for anyone who might not be super familiar with the Enneagram.
Right.
It's basically a system that maps out 9 interconnected personality types,
Okay.
each with its own set of core motivations and fears.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of it.
Right? And when we think about Type 3s,
Yeah.
think about ambition, but on steroids. These are the folks who are just driven to succeed, to be the best,
Right.
to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
It's really all about that.
Okay.
And then the social part of that,
Right.
that's where it gets even more interesting.
Yeah.
What does that add to the mix?
So that's where the craving for validation and recognition really comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about achieving for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but it's how those achievements are perceived by the world.
Yeah.
Think status,
Right.
prestige,
Okay.
being admired for their success.
Gotcha.
It's that outward validation that really drives them.
So is there anyone better who embodies that than Michael Jordan?
I mean, you're talking about 6 NBA championships,
Yeah.
5 MVP awards,
Right.
game-winning shots,
Iconic moments.
iconic moments. I mean, come on.
I mean, that's not just talent.
Right.
That's a relentless pursuit of being at the very top,
Yeah.
of being the best.
Of being the best.
So, I mean, you could argue that a lot of athletes are competitive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But with Jordan, it was this drive was amplified,
Yeah.
almost superhuman.
It was almost like he had something to prove.
Yeah, he wasn't content with just winning.
Mm-hmm.
He had to dominate.
To dominate.
He had to prove that he was in a league of his own.
Exactly.
Do you remember the flu game?
Oh, how could I forget the flu game?
I mean, the guy was practically bedridden.
Yeah.
And he goes out there and scores 38 points to win the game.
38 points. I mean, most people would be calling in sick,
Totally.
But for Jordan, it was like the pressure fueled him.
Yeah, it almost seems like the pressure fueled him.
That's a prime example
Yeah.
of the Social 3's almost paradoxical relationship with pressure.
Okay.
Because they seem to thrive in those high-stakes situations because it's a chance to prove their worth to silence any doubters.
Right.
And what's so fascinating about that? I bet Jordan knew exactly the impact that flu game performance would have on his image, on the narrative of his career.
And how everybody would be talking about it.
Exactly.
Right.
He knew how to play the game.
So he's driven. He thrives under pressure.
Thrives.
But it's not just about basketball, is it?
No, it's so much
Right.
more.
We're talking Air Jordans, owning the Charlotte Hornets,
Owning a team.
commercials, movies.
Yeah.
I mean, the man built an empire.
He built an empire off of his name.
Right.
And that's another key piece of the Social 3 puzzle.
Yeah. What is that?
They're not satisfied with just being good at something.
Right.
They want to translate that success into tangible markers of their worth.
Okay.
Influence, status, wealth.
Yeah, it's not just about winning on the court.
No.
It's about winning in the eyes of the world.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
It's about creating this image of success that everyone recognizes and admires.
Right.
They need that external validation to feel truly successful.
So it's like their self-worth is reflected back to them by the world.
Exactly.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
Didn't one of our sources mention that even after all the championships and all the success,
Right.
that Jordan still felt this need to prove himself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that all those trophies would be enough?
You would think so.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be validation enough?
Well, that's the interesting thing about Social 3s and maybe the potential downside.
Okay.
They can have this insatiable hunger for validation.
Right.
It's like no amount of success is ever truly enough
Gotcha.
because they tie their self-worth to those external achievements.
So even with all the wins, There's still this underlying insecurity, this fear of not being good enough.
That's exactly it.
Wow.
It can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
It drives them to achieve incredible things, but it can also be exhausting.
I can imagine.
Always feeling like they have to perform to prove themselves worthy. You know, it's like there's this inner voice that's always whispering, what if they realize I'm not as great as they think I am?
Oh, yeah, like an imposter syndrome.
Kinda, yeah.
So we've got this insanely driven, success-obsessed, image-conscious personality.
Yes.
Let's talk about the less glamorous side of this.
Okay.
Because honestly, sometimes Jordan came across as kind of, well, a jerk.
Well, hold on. Let's be careful with labels.
Right.
We can dive into that side of him.
Yeah.
But I think what you're picking up on is that aggression that needs to dominate,
Okay.
which absolutely plays into the social 3 personality.
So was the trash talk,
Yeah.
the pushing teammates,
Mm-hmm.
the intensity, was that all just Jordan being a social 3?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
You see that competitive fire, that need to not just win, but to dominate.
Right.
It's like a primal instinct for social 3s.
Okay.
And it bleeds into every aspect of their lives,
Yeah.
not just their careers.
So for Jordan, it wasn't just about hitting that game-winning shot. It was about proving over and over
Yeah.
that he was the alpha,
The one in control.
the one in control. Exactly.
Right.
And think about how he used that.
Yeah.
That trash talk wasn't random.
Okay.
It was calculated.
Okay.
He was a master of
Yeah.
exploiting his opponent's weaknesses,
Hmm.
getting in their heads, controlling the narrative of the game.
Wow.
It was psychological warfare, and he was a general.
So it wasn't just about being mean.
Yeah.
It was strategic.
Strategic.
About creating that psychological edge.
Exactly.
Right.
And that ties back to the social 3's desire to control their image.
Okay.
They're not going to let anyone paint them as weak or vulnerable.
Right.
They have to be seen as the winner,
Mm-hmm.
the one in charge, always.
Gotcha. So I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That need to translate success into tangible markers.
Right.
Our source material used the word mercantilist to describe that.
Yeah.
What do they mean by that?
So that term mercantilist.
Comes from the Enneagram scholar Claudio Naranjo,
Okay.
and he observed that social 3s
Mm-hmm.
often have this unconscious belief that their worth is tied to their productivity, their achievements,
Okay.
and the material things they accumulate.
So for Jordan, it's not enough to just be the best player.
Right.
He needs the championships,
Yeah.
the MVP trophies,
The trophies,
the sprawling business empire.
the empire.
Those are the things that truly validate his worth in his mind.
You know, it's like they need to see that success reflected back to them in a concrete way.
It's not just about the feeling of accomplishment.
No.
It's about the tangible evidence
Yeah.
of that accomplishment.
Exactly.
So in a way, Jordan's entire career,
Yeah.
his brand,
Mm-hmm.
his whole persona
His whole persona.
is a giant monument
Yeah.
to his need to prove his worth.
Yeah.
Not just as a basketball player, but as a person.
As a person.
Now let's be clear.
Yeah.
That drive can be incredibly powerful.
Oh, for sure.
It can lead to extraordinary achievements,
Yeah.
groundbreaking innovation.
Mm.
It's not inherently negative,
Right.
but as we'll explore in part 2,
Yeah.
it also has its downsides.
It definitely has its downsides.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked.
Yeah, me too.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
We've seen how Jordan's relentless drive for success, his need for validation, and his image consciousness all fit into this social 3 mold.
It's all connected.
Yeah, but I'm curious, how does this all translate to the rest of us?
Right.
You know, those of us who aren't global icons.
Well, that's the beauty of this, right?
Yeah, what is it?
Whether you're an athlete or an accountant, a
Yeah.
CEO or a stay-at-home parent,
Yep.
these Enneagram patterns play out in all of our lives.
So even if we haven't won 6 NBA championships,
Right.
we can still learn from Jordan's story,
Absolutely.
from the triumphs and the potential pitfalls
Yeah.
of this social 3 personality.
Absolutely. We can all learn from Michael Jordan.
Okay, great. I'm excited to hear more about it.
Yeah. In part 2, we're going to take what we've learned about Jordan, about the social 3, and apply it to our own lives.
Okay.
We'll talk about the potential downsides of this type, those shadow elements, and how to find a healthy balance.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, even the most successful people struggle with these things.
Yeah, that's true.
So stay tuned for part 2.
All right, I'll be here.
We'll dive even deeper.
Sounds good. Welcome back.
All right.
So last time we were diving deep into Michael Jordan's personality through the lens of the Enneagram Type 3,
Mm-hmm.
the achiever.
Right.
And specifically, we were talking about the social 3 subtype.
Yeah, that's right.
That drive to succeed, that need for validation,
Yes.
and that incredible image consciousness.
Incredible how all that played out for him.
Yeah. It's amazing how much those traits really fueled Jordan's rise to stardom. But we also started to see a bit of a shadow side, right?
Yeah, not everything was perfect.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Right.
We talked about that competitive intensity, the trash talk,
Yeah.
and how for social 3s that need to win can bleed into every aspect of their lives.
Absolutely.
So that's where we're picking up today.
Well,
we're going beyond the highlights to explore the potential downsides of this personality type.
Right.
Because honestly, even with all the success, there could be a real struggle beneath the surface.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Right.
What are some of the darker aspects of the social 3 that maybe Jordan's story can help us understand?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me in our source material was this idea that social 3s can be incredibly adaptable, even to the point of losing touch with their true selves.
Yeah, so it's like they become chameleons, constantly shifting to fit whatever role will make them most successful.
Exactly.
So they're always on, always performing, never really letting anyone see the real person behind the mask.
It can be really tough to see who they truly are.
And that's incredibly draining, right?
Absolutely.
Imagine the pressure of always needing to project this image of success, of having it all together.
Yeah.
It can leave them feeling isolated, disconnected from genuine human connection.
For sure. It can lead to a lot of loneliness.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this could be a problem.
Yeah.
But wasn't there also something about how social 3s can be prone to workaholism?
Oh, absolutely. That drive, that ambition.
Right.
It can turn into this insatiable need to achieve, to produce, to constantly be striving for more.
Yeah.
They can get so caught up in the pursuit of success
Right.
that they neglect other important areas of their lives, their health, their relationships, their own personal well-being.
It's like they're on this treadmill and they can't slow down.
Exactly.
Even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And think about Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He retires from basketball at the top of his game.
Right.
Then tries his hand at baseball. Then comes back to basketball.
Right.
Then eventually moves into business.
Right.
Was that restlessness,
Yeah.
that constant need for a new challenge, maybe a sign of that workaholic tendency?
It makes you wonder.
Right?
Yeah, it really does.
Was he ever truly satisfied? Or was he always chasing the next achievement, the next validation?
Yeah. And that's a key question, right?
Definitely.
Because if your self-worth is tied to your achievements, there's always going to be that nagging feeling of not enough.
You'll never be satisfied.
Yeah.
It's like a hunger that can never be fully satisfied.
So even with 6 NBA championships, Jordan might still have been struggling with that inner critic, that voice saying, I need to do more, be more, achieve more.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely possible.
And that's what can be so insidious about this personality type.
Yeah.
Because on the surface, they're the picture of success, the epitome of achievement.
Right. Everyone looks up to them.
But beneath that polished exterior, there can be a lot of anxiety, a fear of failure, a constant need to prove themselves.
It's a constant battle. I guess that makes sense if you're always focused on what you haven't accomplished yet.
Right.
You never really get to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
To appreciate your own success.
That's the tough part.
So that brings us to another potential downside of the social 3.
Okay.
That fear of failure. Because if your self-worth is tied to your accomplishments, failure becomes this existential threat.
Yeah.
It's not just a setback. It's a blow to your identity, to who you believe you are.
Exactly.
So it's almost like they're afraid to even try something new.
Yeah.
Something outside of their comfort zone.
Right.
Because the risk of failure is too great.
It's terrifying for them.
And that's the irony. Right?
What is that?
These are the folks who are driven to succeed. But that same drive can also hold them back from taking risks, from pushing themselves beyond their perceived limits.
I see what you're saying.
They might stick to what they know they're good at.
Right.
Avoiding anything that could potentially tarnish their image of success.
Right, because failure is not an option.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective.
But honestly, that kind of explains Jordan's baseball stint, doesn't it?
How so?
He was a phenomenal athlete.
Oh, yeah.
But baseball was clearly outside his comfort zone.
Yeah, that's true.
And think about how that played out in the media.
Yeah.
There was a lot of criticism. A lot of people questioning his abilities.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
For someone whose identity is so tied to being the best,
Mm.
that kind of scrutiny can be incredibly painful.
It's devastating for them.
It's interesting that you brought up baseball
Yeah.
because there's a quote from Jordan that always stuck with me.
Oh, really? What is it?
He said, "I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying."
No, that's a great quote.
Uh-huh.
It actually speaks to the resilience of the social three.
Uh,
They might fear failure,
right.
but they also have this incredible ability to pick themselves up and keep going.
Yeah.
They're not quitters.
It's like they reframe failure as part of the journey,
Mm-hmm.
as a necessary step on the path to success.
That's a healthy way to look at it.
Right. And that's a valuable lesson for all of us,
Yeah.
regardless of our Enneagram type,
Absolutely.
because failure is inevitable.
It's going to happen to all of us.
That's how we respond to it, how we learn from it,
Right.
that ultimately shapes our path.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, we've talked about the adaptability,
Mm-hmm.
the workaholism, the fear of failure, but there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up this part.
Okay.
We talked about that mercantilist mindset in part one,
Right.
that belief that worth is tied to achievements and material success.
Yeah.
How does that play out in the life of a social three?
Well, it can show up in a few different ways.
Go.
Some social threes might become obsessed with status symbols,
Uh-huh.
with accumulating wealth and possessions
Okay.
as a way to prove their worth.
Right.
They might be drawn to careers or lifestyles that offer external markers of success, even if those things don't truly align with their values or passions.
So it's like they're chasing that external validation,
Yeah.
that tangible proof that they've made it.
Exactly.
But that can be a really slippery slope, right?
Oh, it definitely can.
Because there's always going to be someone with more money, a bigger house, a fancier car.
There's always someone ahead of you.
It's a game you could never truly win.
You'll never reach the finish line.
It makes you think about all those celebrity stories of people who achieve incredible fame and fortune,
Yeah.
but still end up feeling empty, unfulfilled.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, it's a classic example of mistaking external success for true happiness.
Right. Success doesn't mean happiness.
And that's a trap that anyone can fall into, not just social threes.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so we've explored some of the potential downsides of this personality type.
Mm-hmm.
The workaholism,
Mm-hmm.
the fear of failure, the need for external validation.
Yeah. Some heavy stuff.
It's a pretty heavy topic.
It is, but I think it's important to remember that these are just tendencies,
Okay.
not absolutes. Right. And that even the most challenging aspects of our personalities can be growth opportunities.
So it's not about judging ourselves or putting people in boxes.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding these patterns so we can navigate them in a healthier way.
That's the goal, right?
All right.
And that's what we're going to focus on in part 3.
Okay.
We'll talk about how to leverage the strengths of the social 3
Right.
while mitigating those potential pitfalls. Because even with the challenges, there's so much potential in this personality type.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Mm.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's been quite a journey with Michael Jordan,
It really has.
exploring his incredible success and his complex personality.
Yeah.
Through the lens of the Enneagram,
Mm-hmm.
we've uncovered a lot about the social three, the achiever.
We sure have.
We've seen the drive, the ambition,
Right.
the need for validation,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, even some of the potential downsides
Yeah.
of that relentless pursuit of success.
Right.
It's been fascinating, but honestly, a little heavy at times.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
So for this final part,
Okay.
let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
We've explored the why behind Jordan's drive,
Yeah.
but now I'm curious, what can we learn from all this?
Yeah. What can we take away?
What can we as listeners take away and maybe even apply to our own lives?
Right, because while most of us aren't aiming for 6 NBA championships,
Right.
there's something universally relatable about Jordan's story,
Yeah.
about that desire to succeed, to make a mark on the world.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
Say you recognize some of these social three tendencies in yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you're super ambitious, you love a good challenge,
Uh-huh.
you thrive on recognition.
Okay.
How do you harness that energy without falling into the potential traps we've been talking about?
Well, I think self-awareness is key,
Okay.
right? The first step is recognizing those patterns in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Are you pushing yourself to the point of burnout? Are you chasing external validation instead of genuine fulfillment?
Okay.
Are you letting that fear of failure hold you back from taking risks?
Right.
Once you see those patterns, you can start to shift them.
So it's not about suppressing that ambition, that drive. It's about channeling it in a healthier, more sustainable direction.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
Okay.
It's like turning down the volume on that inner critic, that voice that's always saying, you need to do more, be more, achieve more.
Yeah.
It's about learning to celebrate your successes.
Okay.
To appreciate the journey, not just the destination.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Instead of always looking ahead to the next goalpost,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a moment to acknowledge how far you've already come.
And that can be a real game changer for social threes.
Yeah.
Because when you're constantly striving, you never really get to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
That's true.
It's like you're running a marathon, but you never let yourself cross the finish line.
Okay, so we're working on that self-awareness.
Right.
We're learning to appreciate the journey.
Uh-huh.
What about that whole image consciousness thing?
Yeah.
How do we navigate that in a healthy way?
Well, this one's tough, especially in today's world where social media is all about presenting this curated version of ourselves.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to avoid.
You're right. But for social threes, it's crucial to remember that true success isn't about appearances.
Okay.
It's about being authentic, building genuine connections, and finding fulfillment in things that go beyond external validation.
So it's like asking yourself, who am I really? What do I value? What brings me joy?
Exactly.
And then living in alignment with those answers.
Yes.
Even if it means stepping outside of that carefully constructed persona.
You got to be true to yourself.
And that takes courage, right?
It's not easy.
Because it can feel risky to let go of that need to control how others perceive you.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
But the rewards can be immense.
Oh, absolutely.
When you stop performing, you start connecting.
You start building real relationships.
It's like you're finally giving yourself permission to be human flaws and all.
Yeah, that's when you can truly connect with others.
And that's where the real magic happens.
That's where the good stuff is.
Because when you embrace your authentic self, you attract people who resonate with that, who appreciate you for who you truly are.
Exactly.
Not just for what you've achieved.
Right. They see the real you.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
Success is great and all.
Yeah.
But it means nothing if you're not being true to yourself in the process.
Couldn't agree more.
And speaking of success,
yeah,
there's another lesson we can take from Jordan's story.
Okay, what's that?
He didn't achieve all of that overnight.
Right, he put in the work.
There were setbacks, there were failures.
Yeah, he faced challenges like everyone else.
But he never gave up on his dreams.
That's the key. You got to keep going.
Yeah, that resilience is incredible.
It really is.
He retired from basketball, tried baseball, came back to basketball, eventually moved into business.
Yeah. He wasn't afraid to try new things.
He was constantly reinventing himself, taking on new challenges.
He was always pushing himself.
And that's a reminder that growth isn't linear.
No, it's not a straight line.
It's messy. It's unpredictable.
Right. You never know what's going to happen.
And sometimes it takes us in directions we never anticipated.
That's the beauty of it.
So it's not about being afraid to fail.
No.
It's about embracing those challenges as opportunities for learning and growth.
Failure is just a stepping stone.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that failure isn't the opposite of success.
Right.
It's part of the process.
It's all part of the journey.
It's the fertilizer that helps us grow.
You got to learn from your mistakes.
So even if you're not hitting game-winning shots, you can still channel that Jordan-esque resilience in your own life.
Exactly.
Maybe it's starting a new business, going back to school, or simply having that tough conversation you've been putting off.
You got to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing the unknown.
That's where the growth happens.
And that's what I find so inspiring about the Social 3 personality.
Yeah.
Even with the potential downsides, there's this incredible capacity for growth, for transformation.
They have so much potential.
They're not afraid to dream big, to set ambitious goals, and to work hard to achieve them.
They're go-getters.
It's like they have this internal fire
that
can either consume them or propel them to greatness.
Yeah, it's a powerful force.
And the key is learning to harness that fire, to direct it in a way that serves them, not destroys them.
You got to control the fire. Don't let it control you.
This has been such an insightful exploration.
It really has.
We've gone deep on Michael Jordan, the Social 3, and I think ultimately on ourselves.
Yeah, we can all learn from this.
Because whether we identify as a type 3 or not,
right,
we can all learn from this conversation.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
okay,
what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think this success is multifaceted.
Okay.
It's not just about external achievements. It's about living in alignment with your values, cultivating meaningful relationships, and embracing the journey, not just the destination.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And remember, the Enneagram is just one tool for self-discovery.
Yeah, it's a starting point.
It's a way to better understand yourself and the people around you.
Exactly.
So take what resonates with you from this deep dive. Continue exploring and keep asking those big questions.
Keep learning, keep growing.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of Michael Jordan and the Enneagram.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.